Let's talk about GMOs. How much do we actually know about the effect that they have in our body?
Well, certainly not enough, although we know enough not to eat them. All right, so there's two things here. Because the scientists will always say, if we're not sure, well, we need more study on this. Of course, that study never happens. The controversy stems from the fact that the majority of studies on the safety of GMOs, guess who were conducted by? The very manufacturers of those genetically modified organisms. So what are you going to do? Well, we look to any independent research. And of course, the big study out of France that came out some months ago was about a 2-year study, not a 90-day study, of rats fed GMO corn, for instance, and found that tumors were popping up all over these rats, and also having other endocrine disruptions, inability to procreate. So we got infertility issues, sterility issues. So there's enough over a longer-term study that says this is a disaster, an absolute disaster. And I talk about it in terms of, yes, they're called genetically modified organisms, but I really think that they should be called GMAs, genetically modified abominations. Because there's no place on the planet for man to out-create so-called the creator, in this case, in my opinion. I mean, we have a beautiful, wonderful creation, the planet, the universe we live in. It's quite intelligent in its own right if we would get out of the way and learn from it, in fact. But here we're trying to say, we know better. Let's orchestrate the creation of new things, like they cross, a fish with what now? I mean, a tomato with, all of these things are just absolutely frightening. And the idea is, of course, well, we want to feed the planet. Well, if you wanted to feed the planet, you'd go into the places that are barren and rehabilitate the soils. You would make sure that there was adequate water in those places. But their idea, of course, is all about bottom line profit. How do we own food? How do we control the population? Well, food, water, big part of it. If you can manage their diseases by creating those diseases from the get-go, the disease machinery, if we will, the making machinery, starts with the vaccine issue. I mean, that really is the starting point, and that's like your lifelong gateway drug to dependence on the pharmaceutical industrial complex. So all of these things do coalesce and come together. I believe the GMO issue is going to be found to be one of the worst mistakes that we ever made in terms of promoting feeding of the world, but in fact creating even more diseases that we've never even seen before, or worsening of the existing ones that shouldn't be around at all.
So what can people do, and how will they know what they're looking for when they go to purchase food? We're in California right now, which is a battleground. Last fall, Proposition 37,
yes,
I believe that failed in terms of that was supposed to label GMO foods. Like I said, it failed. So what do people do? How do they know if what they're buying is genetically modified or not?
Well, the only thing you could rely upon to some degree is the certification agencies of organic agriculture. There's a federal and there's some state and local. Now, that's even not 100% guaranteed. I really say this, that we need, instead of growing lawns, we need to start growing our food. We need to save the seeds, the heirlooms, the organic food seeds that you have, and start planting, even if it's in your windowsill, vertical, anything you got. The thing is, we have got to bring that food back into our own production, back into our own lives. And there is going to be a time when already I don't feel I can trust. I mean, listen, you go out and have tortilla chips at a restaurant. 100% of them are, if they're not organic, you know they're genetically modified. All of them at this point. And so how do you know? Well, you find these local, local families you can trust that are starting these local businesses. We need to go back from that global perspective. You've seen these bumper stickers that say, think globally, act locally. That's cool. But the problem is most people are thinking globally and trying to act globally, which is impossible. You think, the bureaucratic oligarchy in the United States, which is supposed to be, some form of a Republican form of government, and I don't mean Democrats and Republicans, but you go back to the origins of it, and you say it was a limited government. It wasn't supposed to embrace global corporations and mandate their products be utilized and protect them from competition from local farmers. I mean, they've wiped out a lot of the family farmers, but each and every one of us has an obligation now to become a family farmer. Even if it's a 1-by-1 plot of the square, we do that. Now we're going to take control. We're going to stop purchasing those, stop relying, stop depending upon those channels of food distribution where they know they got us because we're so hooked, we're so dependent. We've lost through generations the ability to know that food comes from the ground. Like I grew up that way as a city boy. And so I had to come back to this understanding. And so I'm urging everybody that listens to my show to plant something, even if it's one thing, then go to 2 and 3. And in that way, we can break the back of the genetically modified abominations because we're no longer relying fully on them for the food that we bring into our families. So I think it's a simple solution, although one that's not thought of because, oh, no, we have to have government intervene. If you're going to wait for that to happen, they've already intervened. They've intervened on the side of the genetic modifiers.
Mm.